So hello and welcome back to the Unforced Error. We're here to get into the first Grand Slam of the year. Welcome back to any of you that were here before. I know it's been a long time since the US Open, and I usually do a preview, but with all the coaching carousel, the differences, I wanted to get a look at the first round before I made my comments this year. I'm glad I did because some of my earlier predictions are already out of date, as they always are in a Grand Slam. So yes, welcome back. It's great to have tennis on again. There's nothing like a major, as I always say. So we'll go through some of the upsets or the kind of key matches of the first round as we get on to the second round. Um, Broadly, before I start the year, last year, in terms of the themes for the year or things we were looking out for, I was looking out for that kind of middle or lost generation, shall we say, and seeing if those guys could come through. Your likes of Tsitsipas, Fritz, the Medvedevs of this world, that kind of group that I always talk about, and they did have some success, but really. It probably wasn't the ones that they wanted. Fritz broke through his kind of quarter-final qualms from before. Tsitsipas made a final. It didn't take off the way I would have hoped for them, but they're still here kicking this year. Not a lot has changed in terms of their kind of stature in the sport, and I suppose on the men's side anyway, Sinner and Alcaraz really dominated last year, so it'll be interesting to see if they can do the same this year. In terms of my theme for this year, if anyone's interested, is about change. The game has changed so much. We'll be talking about a specific element of the change in a few minutes when we talk about a press conference of a certain player. But the game is more physical, I think, even from a couple of years ago. And we have two young bucks on the go. We have Andy Murray coaching Novak Djokovic, which is still weird to say, and Djokovic is the only one left of the old guard. This is the first year officially without Andy Murray and without Rafael Nadal, and he will be sorely missed for the rest of time. I suppose most of the tennis world has already gotten used to that fact now, and I haven't gathered my thoughts or haven't processed it fully yet. But we're ever thankful personally to Nadal for growing my love of this sport, and I wouldn't be here with you now speaking on the Unforced Error if it wasn't for men like Nadal. So I wish him well in his retirement if he's listening. I doubt he is, but again, you never think something. We grew up, our generation, with the golden age of tennis, and you never think someone else is going to come along like them, or you're always worried about the future, and I'm not worried about the future at all. And as I said, the last few years as well, on the women's side, it's still very open, still very entertaining, and is often more entertaining than the men's in terms of openness and stuff like that. So that's always been the case. That still is the case, and it's exciting to see what will happen this year. From the women's side, it's can Sabalenka, the world number one, be as dominant as she potentially could be. How high is her ceiling now? Now she's number one. She's well established number one. Back in 2023, when she became number one, it was only for a week, and it really still felt like Iga Swiatek was the number one. That's different this time. Even on clay, you have to factor in the Olympics. Now, come to Paris in June or May, sorry, Iga will be the favourite. But the grass in Wimbledon, I'm already excited for it this summer as well. So, okay, that's enough about the year. Okay, we'll start off with the men's side. Alcaraz beat Shevchenko. No surprise there. Good, honest performance from Shevchenko. He's got a tall, towering figure and made Alcaraz sweat for a little bit anyway, and that's all you can ask. Marazan beat Seybold Wild always watch out for Seybold Wild in the early rounds of tournaments because he's pulled some upsets the last few years in a great game. Rude had a long game against Munar. There was a couple of these. You begin to wonder with certain players. You can almost predict who's going 5 sets, and Nishikori spelled out one of his usual 5 setters against Montero. He won. Gael Monfils won against fellow Frenchman Perry Ka. Monfils just coming off a win last week as well. And had some great quotes in the press conference, which I will end on. And at his age, still going strong, amazing, still a crowd pleaser, still some very stylish shots, and a huge server. Perry Kerr doesn't have the kind of experience of Monfils, but people have been talking a lot about the speed of his second serve. They're saying it's basically essentially like his first one, which is remarkable. Sonego beat Stan Wawrinka, or Stan the Man, as he's known as. Speaking of a guy who's been around the block a few times, it still makes my heart glad whenever I see Stan and his beautiful backhand, but not to be for today. You could see he was working the court, trying to move as best he could, but Sonego, a great player, just had too much for him. Did have a great shot between his legs at the end of the third set, so I don't know if you have time for any highlights. I would recommend that. It was a beautiful shot and very effective across the court, one of those ones that you just have to, you take a swipe at and you pull it off. But that was amazing. Medvedev had a tough 5-setter. Came into this tournament feeling very good about his chances, very positive talk in his press conference before the tournament, but really had to work for it today. Fonseca beat Rublev in a match that's catching attention. Another Brazilian, Fonseca, and Rublev, known as the kind of middleweight boxer, if you like, beat him well too, pushed him around the court. He's only 18 years old and has got a lot of people talking about it. About him at this point, so I'll be interested to see how far he goes. Very well spoken in the press conference, it's going to be interesting to see if this guy has a future, but well spoken in the press conference, as I said, and very exciting to see kind of a new talent breaking out. Rublev, to be fair, it's a bit of a matchup issue with him, with some of those kind of taller, bigger hitters. You're always going to get an honest effort out of Rublev, but not to be today. And unfortunately, this is why glad I didn't do the pre-tournament press conference, is Tsitsipas got beat by Mickelson in 4 sets. And for Tsitsipas to be knocked out in the first round of the Australian Open, especially after making the final, is pretty devastating for him. He's gone through some coaching changes. There's been a lot going on in the tennis world with coaches. There's been dramas kind of outside the court, but if you're new here, basically I just talk about the tennis. I don't get involved in all that, but this did involve his father, and his father is no longer coaching him in the same capacity that he was. So that's taken a toll, but tough for Tsitsipas. I do feel for him. Great performance by Mickelson, but he crafted points very well, kind of used the baseline, some lovely slice drop shots as well. So great for him, but really good for Tsitsipas. One of my old favourites. Always great to listen to in the pre-tournament press conferences. Always thinking, coming out with something. Talked about the game changing a lot, as I mentioned at the start. So it's more physical now than when he came on the scene around 2017, 2018, when I first laid eyes on him anyway. And talked about his hunger is in a different way now. I suppose at the start you're trying to make a living for yourself, and now you're well established. He just seems a bit flat when he was talking. He said he's been around the tour a few years now. He knows what the ins and outs, and really shouldn't be getting beat in a first round like that. Did go 2 sets down early, and it's a long way back in 5-set tennis. Going 2 sets down, you can probably scope out 1 or 2 of those maybe throughout a tournament, but you shouldn't be making tough work for yourself in the first round. But I really hope to see Tsitsipas have a great summer, hopefully, and get back to his best, because He's had a lot of scar tissue now, a lot of disappointing results on a big stage, and as I said, I've always believed Tsitsipas has a major championship in him, and I don't know if we're going to see the day that happens, but I really do hope so. On the women's side, then we have a rematch of the first round in the French Open last year between Osaka and Garcia. It's becoming a bit of a kind of contemporary classic, if you will. And excuse me, and Osaka used her ground strokes and to push Garcia right to the third set, and she eventually won in a great game of tennis. It's a great matchup. When I saw that on the card, I was rushing towards it. A great warmth in the embrace now. I think they know each other a bit better. Excuse me. After all their choices, or after all their games and the kind of choices that they make within games, they push each other a lot. Goff beat Sophia Kenin 6-3, 6-3. An improved forehand by Goff. It looks like she was working that in the off season. It seems to be a bit more kind of rotation on it, so it's always interesting in the Australian Open to see what people have worked on. A slightly different serve. I'm not as technical as I'd like to be, but it looks like a new and improved serve, much like Alcaraz as well. Actually, I forgot to mention that. Tomljanovic for the Australians got in a wild card and beat Kruger. It's a great win for her. Iga beats Sinakova. Bencic beat Ostapenko. Bench is making a comeback. Ostapenko just so too inconsistent on the majors now for me, considering the talent that she has. But it's tough. Tennis, it's not easy, and first rounds are tricky. You can ask many a great player that. Danilovic, an old kind of tip or an old favourite of mine, has beat Russ. That's a great win for her. And the tournament favourite, our old friend Aryna Sabalenka, beat Sloane Stephens in a rematch of the fourth round of the French Open last year, and beat her quite comfortably in the end. Stephens, made her work for it, but Sabalenka looking imperious earlier on, and really feels comfortable on the Australian Open now, and why wouldn't she, going for a three-peat? And it's going to be very interesting to see who can stop her there. Wins for Zheng as well. Donna Vekic back to her kind of her peak form last year. Badosa won as well. Navarro beat Stearns in an American playoff. Really had to work for that, 3 sets, but dug out the win in the end. And Haddad Maia beat Riera in her typical guts of 3 hours match, as we always say. Haddad Maia loves the long battles. Probably, in terms of Haddad Maia's chances of going to a final or a semi-final, probably, it's hypocritical of me to compliment her for one thing one season and now criticize her for the same thing another season. But look, you look the likes of Tsitsipas, if you want to make it all the way, you really have to try and conserve energy. I always say it's Grand Slam tennis is ruthless. 7 games over 2 weeks, and when we look back at the golden generation of how they did it for so long, it's still baffling to me. But you want to be trying saving as much energy as possible. Now, Riera did play very well. Few lovely drop shots, lob shots, really pulled it out of the bag. Some miraculous shots, really. But Haddad Maia got her teeth stuck into the game and clawed her way back, and she's due credit for that. A disappointing loss for another Greek. Sakari, unfortunately, has had a new coach as well, and she bows out in the first round for her. And a bit like her Greek counterpart, it's going to be a tough loss for her. She's had a few tough losses now, especially last year as well. A few first round exits, and they go heavy on the heart, I can imagine, and still approaches the game with an incredible amount of enthusiasm, and the athleticism is amazing, but a tough loss for her. And so that's a brief recap of the first round, and we look forward to the second round and so on. Sinner and Sabalenka are probably the favourites, and there's no reason to think anything different at this point. And I finish with the quotes from Gail Monfils press conference, when asked, at the age he's at, do you allow yourself to still think you can win it despite the talent on display there and all that goes with winning the Grand Slam? And he says, I'll answer this: in general, in life, you need to dream, and I have many dreams. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.